Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajim. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamualaikum, dear students. I hope all of you and your loved ones would be doing fine and in good health. And I hope and wish all of you would be preparing well for your final term examinations, which are about to start in the coming weeks. So I advise all of you again to keep on preparing well for your examination, final term examination. And one more thing I would try to remind all of you that only some of you have sent me the topics for research assignment, and I have observed that most of those who have sent me the topics for research assignment, they are taking like common topic for the assignment. So make sure it won't be same, otherwise that might not be appropriate for all of you to keep on working on just one topic. And I advise all of you and I require all of you to not to have a similar material for your assignments. Your assignments should be different from one another, so please, I advise all of you, especially to those who haven't sent me the topic for research assignment. There is a huge list of topics out of which you can choose one topic for research assignment, and I have shared a whole book for reading material with you. So just pick out one topic for your research assignment which will be different from others, and I hope the those who haven't sent me any topic for research assignment, they will send me the topic for their assignments by tomorrow. Okay, now we will start our today's discussion, and I would like to recap the previous lecture, because the topic which we are going to discuss today is typically relevant, is actually the extension of the previous discussion which we had in the last lecture. So in the previous lecture we talked about the concept of geopolitics, and we tried to define that concept of geopolitics, and we also discussed that it is studied in different disciplines of studies, and we also had a discussion about the factors that determine the geopolitics of a country, or that influence the geopolitics of a country. So in our today's lecture we will talk about the various theorists who have given the theories of geopolitics, which has been studied for many years till now, and there are so many innovations which are being accommodated in this very concept of geopolitics. So when we look at the history of international relations, we came to know that at different times different ideas have been put forward by different philosophers regarding the geopolitics. So in our today's discussion, we will start from the very beginning of this concept of geopolitics, and we will try to move to the contemporary era in which, and we will also try to explore what sort of innovations have been accommodated in this very concept of geopolitics. And as I remember, I have given you some ideas about the two main types of geopolitics. The first one is the classical geopolitics, and the other one is the modern geopolitics. So, generally, we categorize the geopolitics into two phases. The one is classical, and the other era is the modern geopolitics. So, in our today's discussion, we will have a brief ideas about the different theories of geopolitics and the ideas put forward by different theorists regarding geopolitics. And we will not dig very deep into this discussion because of the limited time of our semester. I would like to cover as many topics or concepts which are studied in international politics as possible. So we will just have a basic idea about the ideas of geopolitics put forward by different philosophers. So first of all, I would start with the Alfred Thayer Mahan, and he is known as the first theorist who has written extensively on the concept of geopolitics, and he is well renowned all over the world because of his ideas of sea power. And when we have a critical analysis of the history of international relations, we can say that the British Empire was built upon its sea power because they had control over the seas around the world, and that helped them to uh, establish its influence around the world. So, Alfred Thayer Mahan's ideas are they revolve around the sea power, and in contrast to that, Harold J. Mackinder is the one who has written extensively about the land power, the sea power, and the land power. And we would also talk about the philosopher, the theorist who has written about the air power as well. So, first, we will start with Mahan's ideas of sea power, and he was of the opinion that the sea power is necessary to facilitate trade and peaceful commerce. So, when we look at the international trade, when we look at the history of trade among states of the world, we came to know that in the ancient times, most of the trade between the states was done through uh, seas, like it was a maritime trade. Even today, almost 90% of the worldwide trade is being done through sea, so is a maritime trade. So keeping in view the significance of or the volume of trade which is being done internationally, the sea power is something which is necessary to facilitate trade and commerce, peaceful commerce. And the major powers of the world are supposed to have a significant degree of sea power along with the land power and air power. So Mahan was the one who came up with the idea of sea power, and he was of the opinion that the country that possessed power would be the one that could control the seas. So by this statement we can say that in order to be a strong or powerful country in the community of international states of the world, a state should have its control over the seas. So the control over the sea would provide a country with maximum power, with more and more power. So it is imperative for a state to establish control over the seas, and that would eventually help the state to possess more and more power. And then he make a reference, he says that the development of a strong navy was a prerequisite for a state, for a powerful state, as the country's location is quite significant for the state to gain or achieve more and more power. When we talk about the geopolitics, we mentioned in our previous lecture that it is a relationship between the geographic features and the political processes. So here, the country's location is something which is of key value in the geopolitics. So, as the location is of immense significance or immense value in the geopolitics of, or the geopolitical significance of a state, in a similar way, the strong navy is imperative, is something which is necessary for the state to have. So strong navy is, according to him, is a very crucial ingredient or element of a powerful state. And he also stated that, he also said that countries with long coastal lines and good harbors would eventually be able to access more and more power, and they will be able to get connected with the world in a better way. So the countries with the relative accessible location and long coastal lines, they would be much better positioned to gain more and more power. So these are the different ideas put forward by Alfred Thayer Mahan, and he is known as the pioneer of the sea power theory in the geopolitics. And now we will have a look at the map to better understand the ideas put forward by Alfred Thayer Mahan. So in the dark red map, we can see that the two allied powers, the Russian Empire and the France. So these are the two land powers, and a little bit dim red portion of Asia above the 40th parallel under effective influence of Russian land power. So that portion of Asia, which nowadays we can categorize as the Central Asian republics, it was under the effective influence of Russian land power. And the blue colored spots in this map shows the four allied sea powers. The Great Britain, as we can see in the map, close to the one which is attached with the Russia is the German Empire, and close to that is the British Empire and Great Britain, and in the right, extreme right, is the Japan, and the extreme left is the United States of America. So these are the four allied sea powers which are shown with green, blue color in this map. And key waterways identified by Mohan, they are identified with green spots, green dots in this map, and this shows the division or the standings of the countries regarding sea power and land power in this map. So now we will move forward and we will talk about the Frederick Retzel, and he gave the organic theory of a state. According to him, the state is an organism like a man, and that is something which is attached to the earth, that competes with other states to thrive. So as a human organism, that human is born, grows, and vanishes. Like the human is born first, and then it starts growing, and then ultimately he dies. So that the state is uh, a similar sort of organism, and that is attached to the earth, and that as the human competes with each other in a similar way, states competes with other states in the world to thrive. So the theory of state is like he presented the organic theory of state, and that another significant feature which has been put forward by Frederick Russell is the Lebensraum. The terminology Lebensraum, that means the living state space. So the states required living space. So all the states around the world, they require certain living space in which they can uh, survive, they can grow, and they can expand. So, and in order to do that, they prey upon other territories, or they attack other territories to achieve this objective. So this theory, given this organic theory of state given by Frederick Drexel, is another significant theory which we discuss in the theories of geopolitics. Now we will talk about the Harold J. Mackinder. He is a British geographer. He was a British geographer whose thesis of Heartland is still very popular in the current era, and he is known as the pioneer of the theory of a land power, and his ideas are still quite relevant in today's world. This one theory or is a comprehensive one, and the discussions about that would require a lot of time. So as I just mentioned earlier, that we will just have the discuss the basic ideas given by different theorists, and we will not dig into extensive discussion about these theories. So he was of the opinion that he stated that the unequal spatial distribution of strategic opportunities in the world. By that he means that the world is the resources which have been distributed in the world are unequal. That distribution is unequal. Some states, some regions are blessed with natural resources way higher than the rest of the regions of the world. So, and the advent or the development of railroads around the world relieved the countries from dependence on navy to move army. So before this, there was too much emphasis on sea power, because the trade, most of the international trade was being done through sea waters, and in order to move navies, armaments, or artilleries, they have to depend a lot on navy or the sea movement. So when the railroads were established in different regions of the world, the states got released from that dependence to some extent, and according to him, the focus of warfare was shifted from the sea to the hinterland, to the land power. So, and he presented his thesis about the heartland theory, that is the pivot area in the Eurasian continent. It is a huge landmass of Earth, uh, and it is according, when we look at the map, the northern and interior parts of Eurasian continent, where the rivers flow to the Arctic, to the salt seas and lakes. The pivot area is comprised of all these parts, and the railroads would make this easy to defend and hard to conquer. So, according to him, this huge landmass of Earth and the country who will establish its power in that huge landmass of Earth will eventually emerge as a great power of the world, or a superpower of the world. So Russia, that time Soviet Union, he was in control of that huge landmass of the Earth, and with the advent of the railroads, that provided that country with immense power and capacity to defend and hard to conquer. So the heartland theory, he summarizes the heartland theory in the following words: that he who rules the heartland controls the world island, and world island is comprised of Eurasia and Africa. And later on we will have a look at the map of this heartland theory given by the Mackinder. And he who controls the world island would eventually end up controlling the whole world. So according to him, the power or the group of countries that would establish its control over the heartland, that would eventually end up ruling the whole or controlling the whole world. He believed that Germany would be a threat. He believed that Germany would be. He believed that Germany would be a threat to controlling the resources of Eastern Europe, and given by uh, Mackinder. So here in this black and white picture, we can see the pivot area that is mostly comprised of the Eastern Europe, nowadays Russia, and nowadays Central Asian republics, and then is the inner crescent and the outer crescent. So, and there is another light colored map of the pivot area, which is given by Mackinder. Now we will talk about the Hossofer, and he was the next to present his ideas about geopolitics, and he carried on with the ideas put forward by Mackinder, and he is the supporter or proponent of the Mackinder's heartland theory. And he further identified three pan regions. Pan regions are the actually the blocks of power, the north and south blocks of power. So these he classified these blocks of power into three groups. The first one is the Anglo-American or the Latin America, and the other one is the Europe and Africa and India, and the third one is the Japan and the Southeast Asia. So these were the three pan regions, mean the blocks of power classified by the House of Here in this picture, we can see the Pan regions model. In the extreme left is the North America and the South America circle, like the first region of power, and the other one is the Europe and Africa, and the third one is the Japan, India, and Southeast Asia.